Our next guest has spent more than 2 decades in law enforcement, including a decade as a Secret Service agent working to protect world leaders, including President Barack Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and their daughters. Cory Allen has released a memoir titled Breaking Free, a saga of self-discovery by a gay Secret Service agent, which also details his personal experiences in this very special role. Cory, good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
We are so excited to have you on. Let's talk about this book. What does the title mean, Breaking Free?
It was a fitting title as I was trying to figure out how to encapsulate everything that occurred within that time span of when I was writing it and that period of my life, of whether it's breaking free of societal expectations of people putting everybody in boxes, compartmentalizing because it's easy, but also regaining control of my life. I was married to my career for a long period and still wanted to have settle down again and have children, all that good stuff, and breaking free was just kind of the title that came out of that.
I do want to share a bit of your backstory with our viewers. You grew up in a small rural town in Pennsylvania. You said your grandfather had a huge influence on you.
Correct.
Why?
My father was absent for early part of my life, and my grandfather, we moved around a lot. My mom divorced from my father, we moved to Virginia, and my grandfather was always just this bedrock of stability and World War II, POW, and he just, so many core values I learned from this amazing man, and I was so honored to have him in my life for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You share so many of your life experiences, including your mom being involved in an abusive relationship when you were growing up, and you said that actually impacted your career choices. How so?
It did. Yeah, we had domestic violence in the home for about 10 years, from the age of like 9 to 19.
Those are formative years.
Very much so. My sister is 8 years younger, so I was always her ardent protector. So I was usually the one that hung close to home to call 911 for help when mom needed it. She was usually crying out for help, and I just stuck close to home to be there. So those early interactions with law enforcement, I ended up later working for that very same agency as a police officer before I went to the federal level, of just knowing the impact that these officers had on my life, that they were there to help, and then I was able to do the same thing when responding to domestic violence issues as a police officer.
I do want to talk about that federal level, because during your first Secret Service assignment in Miami, some of your colleagues already knew you were gay, and you were effectively ousted, and you said this. This was, quote, "This was my first lesson learning that there are no secrets in the Secret Service." What was that like to get ousted in a professional, in a business setting in your career like that?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
I'd been a police officer for 6 years prior to that. Nobody knew when I left that agency I was married to my then husband. Nobody knew. And in the first 3.5 years of my career with the Secret Service, I could have been fired for any reason, but being in a hyper-masculine environment like that, putting on this machismo, hyper-masculine exterior, and living 2 separate lives, I had to just compartmentalize as much as possible. And so when I learned that not only was I discriminated against, but I was outed from the very beginning, and I had no idea, despite this facade that I was putting on for everybody.
Were you surprised at all that you were outed in that way?
Oh, definitely. I assumed that when I went federal that I would have all these great protections, and it wouldn't be anything like where I had just come from. But it turns out that there were some people who were very narrow-minded and took it upon themselves to out me to everybody, despite me not knowing that.
I'm sorry about that. Now, in 2017, you were assigned to the Obama family for protection in the protection division. What can you tell us about the time traveling with the Obama family?
It was a whirlwind. We traveled the actual world, and coming from a small town and rural outside of Richmond, Virginia or Western PA, to just be able to travel the world on planes with them and jet set, and Michelle Obama's becoming book tour, and to see the impact that she had with her book and just how influential that was also inspiring for me as I came out of that and I was reassessing my own priorities. Just a whirlwind, unbelievable experience.
You've had an unbelievable life. You've also worked at events to protect Hillary Clinton and President Joe Biden. What's the relationship like between a Secret Service agent and the people they protect? I imagine it's not what we see in the movies.
That is correct. It is utmost professional, and though, like the Obamas knew who we were, they knew our first names because you just spend so much time close together and our teams are working so cohesively, but it was always of utmost professionalism. Our personal thoughts and biases, all that is left at the door because we have a mission to accomplish. Zero-fail mission, you get the person in and out regardless of their politics or your beliefs. It was great.
Cory, why did you decide to leave the Secret Service?
To get my life back.
Breaking free.
Breaking free. I had just prioritized my profession over my personal life and ended up going through a divorce through all that. And I realized that if I ever wanted to have children, like, I've got to institute these changes. And even if that meant leaving behind everything that I loved and camaraderie and the network of family that I had developed there, I had to do it for myself in order to achieve those larger goals.
I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision.
It was not. And I felt guilty of like leaving the team and letting the team down, of just because that's the environment, and they become your family, traveling 60% of the time. So I did not take it lightly, but I am forever thankful that I made that decision to do that.
I can talk to you all day long. If you have any interest in Cory's story, and I'm sure you do, please read Breaking Free, a saga of self-discovery by a gay Secret Service, out right now. And for people who want your book, where can they go?
Amazon.com, as well as a slew of other bookstores you can order from any bookstore.
Cory Allen, thank you so much.